Hey guys, it's Autumn here and welcome to Inktober. So this year I am again doing a story of sorts, although I guess last Inktober it wasn't really a story. This Inktober I am actually doing a real story, something I've been working on for quite a while, and I'm very excited to share with you. I will be reading a couple pages of this story every single Wednesday this month until we reach the end of our prompt words. But I cannot promise the same amount of prompt words in every single iteration of this reading, as my writing takes a different ebb and flow every time I sit to write, and it depends on if I'm looking at the prompts or not. So in order to ensure that I can get through the story, or at least most of the story within the month, and hit every single prompt word, I'm going to be reading about 3 pages every video. So, with that stated, let us begin. His ring smacked against his clavicle as he dashed from alleyway to alleyway, building to building, searching for a sign of life in the dark evening air. This end of the city was home to multiple abandoned factories, perfect for the dark workings of the underbelly of the city. This was a mindless task for him, searching out one of his multiple enemies to save an innocent from harm. But his mind was sharp this time. They'd accidentally hit close to home with this victim. His husband, Simon, had been snatched away while he was at work. It was too easy to imagine it happening, and he was not enjoying his imagination displaying his husband brutally beaten and kidnapped in a variety of ways. He approached the paper mill, the location ironic in a sick, twisted sort of way, with 2 leather-bound whips glowing with a pale blue light that fell from his sleeves. There was a scraping of wood on concrete and the sound of someone struggling. He dashed to the door and peeked his head in cautiously, not sure what to expect. He pulled down the hood over his eyes and ensured that his mask was still in place, and then carefully craned his neck in to see the main working area. Sitting tied to a chair with a pink bow in the front was his husband Simon. He looked worse for wear, with a small cut under his left eye, a slowly forming black eye, and a lack of his round-rimmed glasses. His hair was smushed flat on one side, something that Jack knew bothered him, but he was sitting perfectly in the middle of the room with the pale moonlight shining on him. He quietly called out to him, knowing that Simon would certainly hear him. "Simon, are you all right? I'm here to save you." He was attempting to keep this professional. He couldn't let the enemy know they had hit the heart with this shot. He wanted nothing more than to dash in there to save him, fly off with him, then hold him close for the rest of the night. "Dark Angel, I'm fine, a little sore, and the light is bothering my eyes," a quiet response came back. Simon had nearly slipped from the excitement of Jack's arrival, but quickly picked up on the far flatter tone that was being used. Jack tensed at the use of their code phrase, something he had hoped they wouldn't use. Simon was being used as bait to lure him into the lion's den. He thought it over for a moment. He could dash in, grab him, and fly out the roof. It would hurt, he could get shot, and he could drop Simon from 50 feet in the air and kill him. Not a great plan, but a plan. He could clear the building, but he didn't have the patience for it tonight. Getting shot at it was. He took a deep breath in, out, and then 2 pure black raven wings sprung through the slits in the back of his hoodie. Another deep breath, and he flew, top speed, into the room and at Simon. Simon turned pure white with fear and sat there frozen in the chair. As Jack's whips curled around the chair and Simon, he heard the cocking of guns. "Freeze right there, Angel," a deep voice shouted from the balcony. Jack was holding the chair 20 feet up, only another 10 to the glass roof, as he froze midair, his wings only flapping enough to keep them airborne. He shot a glance over at the balcony and saw police officers, all with tasers aimed at them. The voice had come from a rather imposing individual. He had a muscular build that contrasted the husky-looking officer that stood next to him. Jack needed to make a choice. He either had to risk flying through the ceiling and possibly getting tased, or he could land, possibly get taken in by the police and arrested for being a vigilante. Neither sounded pleasing, but he had to keep Simon safe. That was his job. He landed, setting the chair gently on the ground before his enchanted whips disappeared back up his sleeves. A small dagger dropped into his hand, and he cut the ropes that tied Simon in place as they were surrounded by police officers. "Dark Angel, you are under arrest for breaking and entering, assault against multiple victims, and other crimes against the state," the muscular man stated as he approached, though he stayed back from them. Jack helped Simon to his feet and was concerned by how frail he looked in the situation. He gripped Simon's hand tight before swinging him up into his arms. He turned to look at the individual, Simon curling up against his chest and away from the officer. Jack lifted his wings, a show of intimidation, and stepped towards the muscular man. You will let me take this man home to his family, or I will be forced to do something I would rather not do. We are on the same team," Jack asserted, taking on a deep, raspy tone that he used while assuming the persona of Dark Angel. His airs flared a bright blue as he spoke, frightening the young detective, who took a step back from the intense gaze of this harrowing man with wings. "Let him leave," the detective croaked, turning to walk away. His officers turned to look, confused by his change in demeanor. "Sir, are you sure?" an officer questioned, his taser still aimed at the imposing individual that had seemingly just threatened his boss. The detective picked up his pace and whistled at them. "I said, let him leave. Let's go, boys," he shouted, quickly scaling the stairs and rushing back through a doorway. They glanced at him, questioning, but eventually followed him out of the room, leaving just Jack and Simon. With Simon in his arms, Jack walked out of the paper mill and took off into the cold night. The morning sun cut across the room as Simon ripped open the shades, illuminating the blue patterned comforter that Jack had pulled over his head. Last night had been one of the toughest in a while, and there had not been nearly enough sleep for him to want to be awake yet. A shadow shifted in front of the sun for a moment of relief before it collapsed down on top of him. "Ugh, Simon! I don't want to get up yet," Jack groaned from beneath the covers as Simon attempted to pry it from his grasp. He eventually relented and released his grasp on the covers, causing him to fly back slightly. Jack reacted quickly, grabbing him around his waist and gently tackling him to the bed. Simon gasped and began to laugh as Jack kissed his stomach and lightly tickled him. "Aha, all right, stop it, Simon giggled, kissing Jack on top of his head. Jack stopped tickling, but he held tight to his partner, not wanting to leave for work. He would much rather stay home and protect his sweetheart than deal what had happened the day before in his own time. Simon played with his hair, smoothing out the crazy mess that had occurred while he was getting some beauty rest, though he could not tame a stray hair sticking up straight in the back. "Jack, we have to go face the world. We have to go be adults and handle what happened yesterday," he said quietly. Jack buried his face in Simon's shirt, taking in a deep breath, enjoying the smell of lavender and old paper. He sat up, pulling Simon into his lap all in one swift motion. He took a good look, at Simon for the first time since the morning before. His left eye was a little swollen and purple, the cut under his eye looking better, and he was wearing his glasses again. Silver-rimmed, round glasses serving as windows to concerned-looking sea-glass green eyes. His blue-black hair was neatly fixed in its normal spiked position, and he was wearing a red knit sweater. He looked tired. "Simon, I don't know how to begin to apologize for yesterday," Jack began, playing with his wedding ring that hung around his neck. "I should have been there to protect you, to stop—" "Stop, Jack," Simon interrupted. "You couldn't have possibly known they were going to go after me to try and get to Dark Angel. They have no idea that you're one and the same. They told me as much." Simon's face was scrunched up, his normal tell that he was stressing out. But Jack believed he was telling the truth. "Okay, but I'm putting patrols around the library today, just to make me feel better about the whole thing," he insisted, scrunching up his own face to mimic Simon. Simon broke with a soft smile and bapped him on the shoulder. They embraced, sitting in the comfort of their home for a while longer, until Jack broke it with a stretch. He had just realized how incredibly sore his back was. "Ugh, it's been a while since I've broken out my wings. I always forget how much they ache the next day," he groaned, arching his back. A tattoo of 2 neatly folded wings took up all the canvas on his back, a long piece to have done, but worthwhile in the end. Simon absently ran his hand along the long, spiraling whips that ran up both of Jack's arms, stopping to hold his hand before moving to the next. It had been strange to see his powers at work the night before, but almost more strange to see them not activated. Simon pressed both of Jack's hands to his lips before standing, pulling Jack out of bed with him. Jack was taller out of the two of them, and his rust-brown hair added a few inches once it was tamed the way he liked. Jack was also far more muscular, though that was due more to his lifestyle than choice. It was nearly double the size of Simon in muscle mass. They were an odd-looking pair, but their minds were almost always on the same page. Jack rested his chin on Simon's head as they peered out the window of their countryside home. Where they lived was remote enough that people had a hard time finding it, but close enough to the city for both of them to commute to work. They had renovated an old barn and silo when they first got married, their pet project for the first few years together, eventually turning the silo into Simon's personal library and office on the first 2 floors, and a landing pad they called the observatory with their friends. Their home was perfection, a 2-story home carefully constructed in a 17th century barn, with the newest appliances they could get and a fully stocked kitchen. Jack had insisted on a nice kitchen since he knew he would get stuck doing most of the cooking. Simon was intelligent but couldn't tell the difference between seasonings unless he researched their uses. and on their spacious lawn with a small garden with a light dusting of snow. So that is it for the beginning of our story. I hope you enjoyed, and I am very excited to continue it next week. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, everyone.